I have updated my tracker and I got my session done. Day 53 of my modified 90-day novel writing challenge is complete with 100 words. I am going to relax and rest and focus on my recovery. Today is Wednesday, August 14th, day 54 of my modified 90-day novel writing challenge. I am still recovering, but I got my session done. I got 74 words done for this session, and my week's total is 801.
You want to see what's in the box?
Hey, go ahead. Hi, Sybil.
Here's some. Oh yeah, it's teeny tiny in comparison.
Oh, okay. It was just the packaging.
Not nearly as big as we thought it was.
Whoa. Just been waiting for this. Oh.
That's
Oh,
nice.
that's fancy.
Ooh, that's nice.
I am still recovering, but I still sat for my session and got 56 words done. It is day 56, August 16th, and I have 64 words done for this session. We refluffed this beanbag and Sybil is loving it. It is Saturday, August 17th, day 57 of my modified 90-day novel writing challenge. I am slowly but surely starting to feel human again. I have been resting a lot, sleeping wherever I can, and in between I've been reading Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban. I'm almost through with that, which is very exciting because I love when I'm near finish of a book. It just feels like a small bit of accomplishment, and especially when I haven't been able to do much, it's nice to have that for myself. Writing is still very, very challenging, and I've only been doing like 50 to 60 as you've seen in the video so far. But here's the thing about even writing a little bit. I remember those days when I was writing 1,000 words every single day, and sometimes those 50 to 100 words just make all the difference. And if you've ever undergone a really intensive writing regime or schedule, and you've encountered those moments of struggle where the words are just so hard to come by, I mean, every little bit counts. And so I don't look at 50 words or so insignificantly by any means. Whatever helps move my story along, whatever I can put to page, I am really grateful for. And with this iteration of my manuscript, if you haven't already seen the video, in my big update, I made a really major pivot in genre. I went from speculative fiction to literary fiction. I cut my manuscript by 37,000 some words, and the manuscript I'm writing off of is what I kept in the cut. But from that experience, I have learned to cherish every single bit that I can put to paper and to take my perspective even further into the long term. Also, I am setting my mindset differently this time to really look forward to the editing. So instead of worrying about how the story is coming along or what's happening, like, I will worry about that later when the manuscript is finished, probably in a year's time, you know? But now I'm really beginning to start to romanticize the editing that will happen later on down the road, and that's really how my perspective has evolved from the first iteration of this challenge to where I am right now. So I cherish every little bit I can put to paper, and I think of my crafting like painting. You know, the paint's gotta dry before you can sometimes add more layers. and it is a patient process, but I'm now more willing and ready to wait it out than I was before. I just finished the chapter where Harry wins the Quidditch Cup and I was crying. Oh my goodness. I had a cry moment also when Lupin was explaining to Harry how the Patronus charm works. That was a moment. But man, after having not read this book since I was a child, and I've really only just been watching the movies on rewatch over the years, it is worth a reread, and I have forgotten how good the story actually is and how much more nuanced and layered it is in the build-up. But Harry winning the Quidditch Cup, you know, him having a breakthrough moment after everything going on and, you know, being like up against, oh man, I'm crying, being up against foul play and foul players. It really is such a breakthrough moment, and I think we can all empathize with that kind of experience where it's like you feel like just for so long you've been in the mud trudging, and finally like things are turning around, you know? I think Rowling did a really great job building up to that breakthrough moment, and I had forgotten like how slow actually the buildup was for all of these victories to amount in Harry's journey, because in the movie you don't really get that. Even the fight between Ron and Hermione, like I had forgotten that this is effectively like a year-long fight between them, where, you know, Hermione was unseen for her deeds and her actions and choices to support her friends in the ways that they didn't understand at the time, and you know how long she carried that. So ugh, I'm just emotional right now. She went a long time being misunderstood. So rereading this is such a gem. I am so appreciative that I get to reread it and be in the right headspace for it. One thing I did figure out, because initially I was really struggling to get back into the Harry Potter series, I had a little coughing fit. I couldn't figure out why it was so hard for me to get back into my childhood phase. I was like, what's different about my mindset now that I struggle to immerse myself in these books? And I thought about it for a while. Intermission.
Harry's looking for the prisoner of Azkaban at the moment. Lots of strange happenings in Azkaban right now.
So it occurred to me that I jumped really quickly into a serious form of reading when I went into school for nursing and then later for business. So I went from like reading fiction to then like scientific articles, business case studies, and that altered the way that I could really interact with fiction books, and especially books that I read growing up, like Harry Potter, Aragon, I can't remember at the top of my head the other series I used to love, City of Masks, Song of the Lioness series. I really love those books, and I remember that I was able to get into them. And when reading scientific papers or just anything academic related, you read differently, and what I had learned to do to get through all the required reading I had from undergrad and grad school, I learned to read fast. And while that worked for me to get through schooling, I've realized recently that that is what's been keeping me from getting immersed into my childhood, young adult phase. So in my sickness, I haven't been able to read fast because my eyes are tired, my body is tired. And so I've been naturally just reading really slow. And suddenly I found like the gates of my imagination reopening, and I found myself like becoming lost in the book and having a totally different immersive experience rather than a outsider's experience, just like not being able to get into the story, you know? And I think that's really what has been the missing component, to read slow, not fast. I think about this further, and you know, when I was young, I did naturally read slow because I didn't have the skill of fast reading. But I think that's what I needed to be able to reconnect with these books. It is 1:55 p.m. and I have written 143 words for this session. I finished Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. That was a very enjoyable read, and I'm glad to have read it again. It has been such a busy day already with chores, so I haven't gotten to my writing just yet, but I am now about to hop into my computer to get my session done. It is 1:40 p.m. I am not going to try and do the most with my session today because I am quite fatigued from the exertion of my chores. I wanted to do my book haul video this week, but I might have to save that upload for Friday's video. It is 2:23 p.m. and I have 146 words. I'm going to end my session here and rest and get some reading in. I am reading Resurrection by Tolstoy. I have about 100 pages left, and I'm really hoping to finish it today. My husband and I just got back from an impromptu comedy show. Sybil has walked, and I ate some spicy toast. I've got a cough drop that I'm using to soothe the fire. Slowly but surely, I am starting to feel human again. My appetite is coming back. Things are looking upward. I have about 80 pages left in Resurrection. I'm hoping I can get 40 pages in. We'll see. Finished. It is Monday, August 19th, day 59 of my modified 90-day novel writing challenge. I spent the morning journaling, drinking plenty of tea. I'm not quite back on coffee yet, which hurts, but hopefully soon. I did some meal prep with black beans and made my husband and I black bean burgers for lunch. It was very filling, very nutritious, and now I'm about to take Sybil out for a walk. It is 12:15 about. These days, I do not know how the time goes by so fast. I feel like I was in the kitchen for like 3 hours tending to the black beans, cooking them up. I'd soak them overnight and, you know, just cooking, cleaning, like that stuff takes time. In my first iteration of this challenge, where I was writing 8,000 words every single day, I had to make a lot of sacrifices to make that volume of words happen. And unfortunately, cooking and preparing meals took a cut when I was in that part of my challenge. In retrospect, I realized that is the very picture of not actually having balance whilst writing. And so when I had that inadvertent and surprising pivot where I realized that I was writing the wrong genre exactly 38 days in, and I decided to also slow my roll because writing literary fiction is an entirely different mental and psychospiritual demand than speculative fiction, in my personal experience. Recovering from a bout of illness, I have renewed perspective on what is actually important to maintain in this right life, and a huge one is my health and my nutrition. I need to sustain my body to write well and write in the long haul. And what I've realized is that if I am writing at a volume that is causing me to sacrifice in these areas of my life that are also vital to my overall well-being, the holistic picture of me, that is not wise. I am glad for all the changes I have encountered, all the learning that I have gained throughout the challenge, and I continue to learn. Rebalancing my life after having tipped it even over that little bit that I had in my previous iteration of the challenge is also intentional work. It's not as simple as, oh, I kind of went a little extreme and now let me just course correct in a day. It actually doesn't happen that way because the buildup of stress, its accumulation is insidious. I have not really been sick at all this year, and so to have finally reached that point, it made me realize how much more damage I had done to myself in the extremes of my initial iteration of the challenge. My new philosophy is truly that writing has to be an integration of my life and not the be-all, end-all, the sole focus of it. And if you've watched some of my earlier episodes, I've actually realized that I have to write less and read more. I'm that kind of writer, and I have to make efforts, intentional efforts, to not stress out at all about writing. It has to be that easy. So my solution thus far has been to write slower, write more intuitively, though still daily, and stretch out the novel writing process even further than 90 days, probably a year. That's a realistic energy output for me with all the other things I've got going on in my life. And though I had a little bit of a hiccup with being sick, I am at day 59 enjoying this pace so much more. There is no comparison really for how significantly better this slower pace, this more relaxed approach to writing has been for me and my overall well-being. Again, it's relaxed, but there's still intention, obviously, for when I sit to write. And the constraints I do place, are very moderate, that being writing every single day. If I'm gonna take this relaxed approach, I need to have a little bit of structure so that I get things done and that I actually see progress in my manuscript. And so my workaround for that is to write daily, though still intuitively. I have seen predominantly as the example for good writing practices, people really going hard in the paint with their writing. And I understand the necessity of it, I really do. But for me, I have found that does not work. I have learned, again, so much in writing at high volume at the beginning stages of this challenge, such as navigating transitions, really looking at my problems in writing from a critical perspective, not a personally sabotaging one. And those skills I only did learn by the volume I put at first. Now, knowing the kinds of issues I do face from a skill standpoint in writing, I have a better awareness of how to navigate that even as I'm writing slower. For example, sometimes when you're stuck in your writing, it's not just writer's block, it's that the story has to change scenes. You need fresh air in your manuscript. And you might be stuck because you're resisting this change that needs to happen. Sometimes when you're looking at your story and you're like, what is happening? I'm confused, like, what is going on? That's a point where you may need to just continue writing the story and revisit that specific segment when you go to edit. That reflects needing to trust the process a bit more, that, hey, not everything is gonna get fleshed out in clarity up front. That's also the progression, the natural progression of the story itself. Sometimes when you're feeling like, man, my story sucks, like it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that I imagined it to have, that's probably when you need to take a step away from your manuscript and have a good long break and self-care. What I've realized in writing is that most of the resistance comes from an inability to trust the process or struggling to let go of control of how the story wants to unfold differently than how you initially imagined it in your mind. Personally, now, where I really struggle most is the transitions. When my story needs to move, I'm not always quite sure off the bat which direction to go for, because really, truly, there are infinite possibilities for how your story can unfold. But the important thing for me now is that I recognize where I'm struggling and what I'm struggling with. And that did come from me going hard at first in this challenge to really see the elements, the big picture elements of novel writing. Again, disclaimer, I don't have everything figured out. It is an ongoing learning process, but those are the main things I've learned. I'm going to end this vlog here on that high note, and I'm gonna resume my next vlog with my word count update for day 59. I hope that in me sharing my process, it's helping to maybe diagnose some things that you're struggling with in your write life and shed some light into this really kind of ambiguous and very challenging process.